Hello, everyone. Michael E. Parker, and I am so excited to be here with you for another episode. Have you ever been in a situation as a leader, as an entrepreneur, where you wonder how to create structure and how to put something together that will keep teams working together, getting things done? Whether you're a business of one or a business of many, you have to figure out how to structure things to make sure that you can actually get results. And so this is something I want to talk to you about today, and I am so grateful for some of you that are able to tune in live and all of you that will see this later. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe, do all the YouTube stuff, like and comment. But we're going to talk about today some really critical things and how you need structure to really begin to run your business the right way. So this is really targeting a lot of you that are business owners out there, entrepreneurs, and you have to solve the problem of how do I get the most out of the people that I'm working with? What is the best structure? Now, if you are a smaller team, you eventually want to grow that team. So this is very important for you. And if you have a larger team, you're trying to figure out the best way to get things done. So there are so many sizes of teams, so many sizes of issues that we deal with. But again, your team needs structure. You have to have that, not just for you, but even for your team. So I'm going to go over 4 ways entrepreneurs can structure effective teams. And this will allow those teams to begin to flourish, to begin to grow, to be productive, to be effective, to be efficient, and most importantly, for you to meet your goals as a business. And ultimately, you want to make more money, you want to produce more wealth, and you want to be able to do that in the most stress-free way that you can. And if you think there's nothing, that can, bring stress to a business, you've not been in business. And one of the most core things that can bring stress to a business is all the people and dynamics and personalities and trying to figure out how do you put this thing together in the best way to get the result that you're looking for. So it's a chess match and you're trying to figure those things out. I've been in business for 2 decades and started numerous businesses. And when you start businesses and you begin to try to figure out what's the best way to align people, how do you get people to be as effective in their strength, but to also grow in their weaknesses and to not limit them to who they are now, but to think about who they can be, how to get the most out of the different collaborations and the things and the synergies that you see between teams? There's so many things to consider. So before getting really deep into this, I want to just kind of explain something to you. And I'm going to go to my whiteboard, and I want you to understand there is a direct relationship to the importance of structure. So I want you to know when we talk about structure is extremely important because structure is something that begins to organize things. It begins to really begin to make it clear what is supposed to happen. It allows things not to be, loose and, in a way that there's no sense of parameters and understanding of what's to be done. But literally the key benefit and the core benefit of having structure is that it leads to something called responsibility, right? And I was talking to some of my team not long ago about this and why structure is so important, because it leads to responsibility. And when you have structure, it automatically begins to create responsibility because people then know what they're supposed to be responsible for. So would you like to have an environment within your business, within your company, wherever you may be, where nobody knows what they're responsible for? So if no one knows what they're responsible for, you can't really hold people accountable, right? If no one knows what they're supposed to do, if no one knows where they're supposed to go, if no one knows why they matter, if no one knows how they're interrelated with other people within the team and in the structure of what your team is trying to do, what your business is trying to accomplish. So we have to have that. And then once we see people working in those responsibilities, it leads to something that we all know, a big word called trust. So if I know that people are willing to be responsible in the structure and do what is required of them, I begin to trust. And as that structure begins to work together and it's dependent on different people, different talents, different skill sets of different ones on the team, and you start to see that the structure says they're going to be there and they were there. The structure says they can do that and they do that. The structure says I can go to them if I have this issue and they were there when I went. So trust begins to be created. Trust begins to be created in one another. Trust begins to be created in other leaders. Structure begins to be created in the business. And trust begins to be created within the leader of that business, because they start to see that you're trying to do what's best for the business. So this is extremely important. So again, remember that. Structure, responsibility, trust. Structure leads to responsibility. Responsibility leads to trust. Now, before we get into, I told you, we're going to talk about 4 ways entrepreneurs can structure for effective teams that can really get things done. 4 different, ways that I've used that have been extremely effective at different times, depending on what you're trying to do, depending on what that business is trying to accomplish, depending on the dynamics of the people that you're working with. But before talking about that, I want to talk to you about a great analogy. Let's use basketball, because you all know that's my favorite sport. As a basketball player and athlete, I'm always ready. You see I got my URCL gear here again, and if you want some URCL gear, you can check in the description. We let you know where you can go to our URCL store. But I love putting some gear on and staying flexible, where I could be professional, but I also could just jump on the court and shoot a little bit if I want to. And I've always loved the sport. When you think about sports, it's a great example of structure, because you have to have structure within a sport, within any team. Let's say a team sport especially, you've got to have structure. You've got to have roles, right? So let's look at that for example. Let's head over to the whiteboard and have a little fun here before we go deeper into the topic here today. So let me see here if I could draw. Yeah, let's get a little basketball court going here. So, let's say this is our basketball court. We got a little backboard here, and we got us a little rim. So I have a basketball court here, right? And I want to talk to you about using basketball. There's something we can learn about structure, and we can learn about roles, right? I'm going to use something that you can relate to it. If you're not into basketball, it could be educational for you. But I want you to understand that there's a lot of lessons in it when you understand a team sport. And business is a team sport. I repeat, business is a team sport, right? So sometimes people say, well, who's the greatest, player, what have you, in basketball or in football? Well, I mean, it's kind of hard to say that. It's a team sport. Tom Brady was awesome as a quarterback, but if he didn't have an offensive line that blocked for him, he wouldn't have did none of the things he accomplished. No way possible. Basketball is great. Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant and LeBron James, but if they didn't have some people around them that was supporting them, there's no way they can win. You couldn't put them on the court by themselves. 1 against 5, and they do it. Now, tennis is a little different, right? Golf is a little different. We're talking about a team sport, and business is a team sport. So make sure that we're really clear about that. Business is a team sport. Now, there are 5 key roles traditionally in basketball, and some of this is more, basketball has changed a lot, right? And maybe I'll talk about that a little bit, but there are 5 key positions that I want you to keep in mind. And maybe I'll get me another color here. So we're going to put up here one of our players here, and there's a role of a point guard. And let's put another role here. We're going to talk about these, what is called a shooting guard. And we're going to put somebody about right here. And there's another role called a small forward. And then I'm going to put another player here. And there's what you call a power forward. And then I'm going to put another player here. There's what you call a center. All right. So we've got 5 key roles here that are used in basketball, and there's a structure of how these roles are to work together in an organization, in a team format, to win. right? And so we have to think this way. And I want you to seriously understand that before we get, into these 4 ways that entrepreneurs can really use to build effective teams. That's our subject here today. I want you to just follow me in this analogy. Now, this is very, interesting how teams work. And that's why we need to have structure. We need to have team if we really want to beat our competitors, right? Not another team on the other side of the court or the field, but there's other competitors in your market. And they have a team. And they have a product. And they're trying to win the game. And the scoreboard is revenue. The scoreboard is cost. The scoreboard is margin. The scoreboard is profit. And we have to look at that scoreboard and understand who's winning. Right? Who's winning the game? Now, I want you to understand something. Let's look at this for a minute. Now, a point guard is normally, let me get me even another color here. A point guard, normally a smaller person that's on the court, a lot of times seen as, the coach on the floor. They're the ones that, they have to set people up to succeed. They are, they have to know the strengths of everyone, right? How to help everyone succeed. They're normally highly skilled, right? They can dribble, they can shoot, they can pass. There's a cerebral element of their ability to think, which is probably most critical with this role. And so we see, a lot of wonderful point guards. Probably one of the best ever we've seen was Magic Johnson, and his ability to see things before they happen, right? We've got great point guards today like Chris Paul, true point guards that really think about how to set people up. And this is how traditionally this role was supposed to be, right? This is what you're traditionally supposed to have. Now, your shooting guard, this may be smaller person as well, but maybe a little larger than the point guard traditionally, right? This is just traditionally a high emphasis on, of course, shooting, right? Scoring, right? Getting points. So this is a big goal of this individual, being able to shoot from different ways, outside, inside, right? They can do things, in different ways. And when we say outside, inside, the outside is really, here we have, for those that don't know basketball, we've got our 3-point line here. And every time you shoot behind that line, you get 3 points. And then, inside, we call this the paint. And when you get into that paint, your percentage of making baskets, I should say your percentage of making a shot goes up the closer you are to the basket. The further you get away, it's a higher probability that you won't make it, just based on percentages. So getting closer to the basket is always, one of the greatest strategies of basketball is getting closer to, that basket. So all the roles are different. It's just like you have sometime in a company, there are people that are closer to the customer, right? They make the sale. Right. And so in a sense, it's almost like they're closer to the scoring. Right. There's a lot of people in the business before you get to that enable that person to sell that. Somebody had to make the product. Someone had to design the product. Somebody had to make sure a team was there to work with. Somebody had technology for you to use. Somebody had to make sure that you had a computer in hand to be able to do the functions that you do to prepare for that sale. So I can go on and on and on, right? And this is why you see business is a team sport. So I want you to see here that, again, these roles are very different. Then you have your small forward. Now, here's someone that is normally maybe, a little taller, highly skilled, because the small forward was someone who could, come outside or go inside very easily. Got some good size on them. They're able to go either way, right? And they're all supposed to be able to, they're able to go back and forth and to help the team in different ways because they're a little bigger, got a little bit more on them to be able to go in there and take some of the hits. And they're able to go in and score in different ways, and they can both offensively and defensively. They're able to guard, almost anyone. They're able to have a lot of flexibility in how they are used for both offense and defense. And this is, again, so you look at your point guards. We talked about shooting guard was like, Michael Jordan, probably one of the greatest shooting guards. Kobe Bryant, they also sometimes you could say was, played in a small forward role as well. Small forwards a lot of times play with their back to the basket and do many different things. So you can see the diversity of these roles. Now think about the power forward. Now the power forward was definitely one of the more taller roles. Again, able to shoot but more what we call mid-range, not out there shooting three-pointers as much traditionally now. And we say mid-range, we're talking about, in these areas, they could step away a little bit, but they can also go down inside in the basket, can, score down low in the paint, and they're able to help rebound. Now, we've had great power forwards that we've seen, very highly skilled. People like Karl Malone, or today you got people that are very flexible, but they're still seen as more of a power forward. And when you think about all of these people that are able to do different things, you start to see like, wow, really the game is really changing, because almost all of these positions, have been redefined today, right? But this is what was supposed to be. And this is important to understand in business, that you can't stay the same. You can't stay the same in your business and say, this is what marketing always was. Well, you'll get left behind if you still reading old textbooks and think marketing is the same. Marketing has changed. Sales has changed. Operations has changed. Everything you do today in business has changed. So you have to know the traditional roles, and you have to know how to evolve your structure to what is actually working today with the dynamics of the environment that we're in. Now that brings us to our center. Our center was normally, the tallest, biggest, player on the team. Focus heavily on rebounding, right? So whenever the ball is shot and it doesn't go in, they're supposed to get that ball and help to put it back, right? Scoring close to the basket, right? And also, they are individuals that are intimidators to the other team. They don't want to come in. They're in the way, right? So, defense is a big aspect of that center. And so, we saw great centers, when I was coming up, like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Olajuwon and, Patrick Ewing, some of these great centers. But today, it's just so interesting how everything has changed. Now, we've seen, in traditional time periods. So we've got, now think about this for a minute. We've got there's the kind of old school, and old school said it's all about what you call inside out. So what does that mean? Well, first of all, when we think about maybe I can get me some brown here for our basketballs if I got some colors on here. Yeah. So let me get I get orange. So if we take our basketball, right, and we want to, old school, the way you used to play basketball is to get the ball inside to the big man, right? And when you keep putting the ball inside, the defense starts to come and pay attention to the inside, and then you start going outside and getting a lot of open shots because everyone's worried about the inside, then the outside begins to open up. This is the strategies of basketball, right? But then came along something more new school. I'm gonna put this in purple, kind of where we are now in the age of Steph Curry. And we have moved to more of a outside in. Now, what does that mean? Well, now we have a situation where you've got more people shooting, right, your point guard, your small forward, your shooting guard, your power forward, and even your center today. People like Joel Embiid and different ones out there shooting threes. And so the more people are shooting, it makes the defense look out to try to stop that, and then the inside opens up. Now you can start driving more and different things. These are strategic shifts in basketball. So sometimes you'll see, they even call it positionless basketball, where now it's almost like every player can do almost everything. So we have many options on how to assemble a team to win. Like, when the Warriors came out and they were shooting all these threes, people said, that's cute, that's nice, you got a good record, but you'll never win a championship that way. There's no way in the world. You can't keep shooting like that. When the playoffs come, that's going to all change. Well, they proved everybody wrong. And you have someone like Draymond Green, or more of like a small forward, can play some power forward too, but, a true small forward that is able, that's flexible, has skills, can dribble, can pass, like a former Scottie Pippens and even like your LeBron James, and being able to do all those different things. And you start to see this team that was able to play a different style of basketball and win. So you have to know, for your particular business, what is the structure that will help you to win based on the type of talent you have on your team. All right, so I think you get the point. Now, what I want to do now, let's get to those 4 areas or ways that I mentioned that entrepreneurs can structure effective teams. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is a structure by function. By function. Now, when we think about a structure more by function, we start to think about how we are more focused on the specific areas that we are trying to do. This is where traditional thinking, you think more about departments. Now, I hate saying that word. Those of you know, you read in my book, Who Said So. I don't like departments. I like teams. The word depart is in department, and that tends to be what happens. People start departing from one another. But it's important, if you do have to have functional focuses, that you don't have to have a department mentality. And you can teach people to still think as a team. And there's ways to do that through your policies and your meetings and how you do things, the culture you create. But this is more traditional, and it still works and is important. So somebody has to focus on the function of accounting or marketing, right? Or human resources, right? Someone might focus on today, let's say technology. So this is very effective when you are assembling a team around a particular function that has become so important to your business that you need talent to think in that function and get really good at it, right? So there's limitations to all of these, just like we talked about with basketball. There's limitations to everything, right? If you're gonna shoot a lot, and not throw the ball to higher percentage positions on the court down low, then you're in danger. If you're not having a good shooting night, the whole thing falls apart, right? So there's many dangers to whatever structure you choose, but this is a structure that is very common and still effective. And I've used this at times where you have to have, individuals that focus on a function, and you have to build a team within that is able to get results, right? So you might, within that structure, begin to build a team that begins to focus on that particular function. So this is one of the ways. We're talking about function, and even if you're a smaller business, even a business of one, you should be thinking about these things. Eventually, if you want to grow, eventually you have to have a team. You can't do it all. If you want to make serious money, I don't know where some of you are in your revenues, but you have to think about growth. You have to think about scaling. You can't stay the way you are. You have to think about eventually beginning to get your business to a point where you can begin to build a team. You can build a structure where you actually have something that can grow and something that can work without you as well. Very important. If there's things that can be done without you, you have to start building up to that. So this is a very, very key thing if you really want to be a viable business. Now let's go back to the whiteboard here. Let's talk about another way of organizing here, and that is by skill set. Okay? So skill set is another way of organizing where you start to build, since we're talking about the kind of a different angle, I'm gonna use some circles here, but let's say we start to build some teams that are built around skill sets, okay? Now, what do I mean by that when we talk about skill sets? So a skill set might be like creativity, okay? So you might have a team of people that are highly creative. And so you build a team around that skill set, right, of being creative. There could be a team that is very analytical, right? That's another key area. You could have, a particular team that is very good at writing. And you build around these skill sets and you begin to put people in those areas and you start to make sure that those individuals understand how they are built around those skill sets, but they are still working together to support a team, right? So you have to begin to build those connective points so that the creative people respect the analytical and the analytical expect the people who are writing, and you're assembling this team for a specific goal because of the type of thing you're doing and the type of thing that the type of talent that you have. So this is another way of mobilizing teams, right? Around skill sets. Now, let's go to another one. So another key way that we can organize is around process. Okay, around process. So when we think about process, we start thinking about how our business is built to really create a flow from basically a need in the market or problem you solve to a customer, right, that is happy. Right? And they begin to receive that value. And so sometime I might refer to this type of structure as a value stream type of focus, because we're looking at the stream of activities that deliver value to a customer. Now, I want you to keep this in mind. So in this type of thinking, we're looking at the connective flow of value within a business, right? And let me make this a little bit bigger. How this flows within a business and ultimately gets to that customer, right? How that value is delivered. So here's an example. Now, there's a lot of ways to do this. And, I'm just using this as an example, but you can do this in many different ways. But you could have a team in which their focus is on lead generation. So their responsibility is to generate leads, to make sure there's people to sell to. So what would be next? Well, we got another team that focuses on sales, right? To convert those leads into sales. The next step after they're sold, let's say we have another team that's focused on product. Let's say product delivery, right? And we got another team that's focused on customer management, let's say. Now, these are teams that are focused on things, but it's in a process flow because we're thinking about the flow of how the work is done, and they are, basically steps within the flow of value, and the teams are literally organized that way. And they know exactly the role they play in that, river, if you will, that is flowing to the customer, right? So this is another way of organizing a team. So I want you to keep this in mind. This is very, very effective as well. Now, let's go to the final way here. I want to show you a final way that I also love to do, which is to actually organize by committee. Now, this is almost getting to what we talked about in the basketball example, where we're getting kind of to the highest height of, back to that positionless, basketball, right? Where people come together, right? We got a group of people that's coming together, and so this is kind of like, and now let's, kind of like people standing in a circle here. And as they stand in this circle, they all agree to collaborate, right, for the good of what that committee was formed for. Now, these are things that can be done by project, right? A project could be a key way of doing that. This can be what you call a cross-functional team. So for this particular example, we need a creative mind in here. We need someone who understands something about marketing for what we're trying to solve in this committee. We need someone who really gets operations. And here's someone that understands risk. Here's another individual that understands technology, right? And someone else that understands sales. And this individual understands, they actually understand accounting. And for what we're trying to accomplish, we need all of that in one place to begin to work as one. And it's almost like you see there's a wheel here, right? And it can roll towards the thing that we're trying to get done. And we're not concerned about function and, skill set or what have you. We're kind of working as a committee to get a job done. Now, I do this all the time in my business. I just recently had a CEO think tank, and I just brought in people that I felt needed to be in that think tank. And I do that with my team sometimes, say, I got some things on my mind, but I need some brains to bounce it off of. I need some people to challenge some of my thoughts, help me flush through this a little bit more, tell me what hits you when I say this. And some wonderful things come out of that. When you start to open up and you get more minds in from different skill sets, functions, and different, areas of expertise, and you start to ultimately generate a better outcome. So this is, again, so we went over these 4 ways. Now I want to sum that up for you, and I want to remind you, again, make sure if you are here, make sure that you're doing all the YouTube-y stuff, right? Subscribe, like, comment. I want to remind you, if you want to keep getting content from CEO and Michael E. Parker, make sure you do that. Spread the word, share our videos. We're trying to grow this channel. And so, let's have a team approach, right? And help us let the world know about some of the wonderful things we're trying to share here. But let's sum this up. Now, think about this for a minute. We talked about 4 ways, right, that we can build effective teams. Let's go back to the whiteboard here. So 4 effective ways we can build an effective team. We talked about by function. We talked about by skill set. We talked about by process. And we talked about by committee. And the key to all of this is aligning the right structure to the problem you need to solve. That problem might be getting a product out to market faster. It might be how to organize a operation that can support a software. That problem might be how to support running an office that provides a particular expertise in the medical industry. That problem might be a trade and trying to serve many different things that come at you in different requests for service, right? whatever that thing may be. You might have something that's multifaceted. It has a product area, has services areas. You might deal with a lot of clients who have to walk into a facility, and another business is all online. So what problem are you trying to solve? Hence is what we mean when we say we want to build an effective team. But that effectiveness a lot of times comes with how well you do what I just listed below. This is what will make it effective. So it's not the structure. A lot of times it's the strategy behind the structure. So the final point I want to leave with you is that the strategy must be the foundation. That strategy will then lead to the structure, which leads to everyone knowing their responsibilities, which leads to what we talked about, which was trust. And once you have trust, you can build anything. And that's what we want to get to, having an environment where people trust one another, from the team to the customer. And when you have that, you're going to get outstanding results. And so I want to thank you again for being here with me. I am Michael E. Parker. And listen, I want to tell you there's a more wonderful videos we have here. So make sure you take the time to look at the next video that's coming up. And I want you to continue to grow as a leader, making sure that you realize your team needs structure, that your team needs to have a clear, defined way that they understand how they work. And you can leverage these 4 ways to really begin to create effective teams. So make sure you use that to support whatever it is that you need to do. And if you are interested in some of the free training that we have offered right now, we're going to put that in the description. We have a free test drive where some of you can get some leadership training. We got some other information about things URCO is doing. So make sure to always check in on our descriptions and find out if there's anything that we're doing or offering that could help you. I can't wait until we meet again. I'm Michael E. Parker, and we will see you. Remember, run your business as an effective leader, but make sure you always run the business of you. Until we see each other again.